All right, hello, my friends. Today I have for you a story called Chrysanthemum. It's by Kevin Henkes, and it is the story, this little girl with her name. Look at how many letters she has in her name, Chrysanthemum. Shall we count them? Let's check. Let's see how many letters are in Chrysanthemum. Ready? 1, 2, 4, 6, 12, 15, 20. 20 letters. Yeah, okay, we can do it the right way. Let's do it the right way. Ready? We're going to count one number for each letter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That is a lot of letters for a little girl's name. Let's see what's in the story. Here we go. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is, said her mother. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. And you can see the flowers on her blanket match the flower on the cover. That is a picture of a chrysanthemum. A chrysanthemum is a kind of flower. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew, and when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. I think that's the letter carrier. I think that's the mail person. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. There she is, the way she wrote it. It looks like she used all caps, and that's okay. It's just not the kindergarten way, but that's okay. And she kept saying, Chrysanthemum, Chrysanthemum, Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect, and then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way. Hooray, said Chrysanthemum, school. But when Mrs. Chudd took roll call, that's attendance, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. And you can see some of the other children's names here. There's Don and Eve, Kay, Max, here's Sam and Bill, and here's Joe and Victoria. And look, Chrysanthemum's name is very long. It doesn't fit in her little box. It's so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on your name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. And Chrysanthemum, she wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect anymore. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chudd that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. Is that how many we counted? It is. It's spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Look Does she have her happy face anymore? Does she have her sunny smile? I don't think the other children in school are being very nice to her. Let's see what happens with that. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish, said her mother. Your name is beautiful. And precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Well, Chrysanthemum felt much better. After her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese and ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. You can see right there, parcheesi is a board game that they played. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. Look at the word Jane. There you go. Can you see that? That's very short. That one only has 4 letters. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper, and she walked to school as slowly as she could, and she dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. You can see she made the letters in the dirt with her feet. C-H-R. She's kind of on top of the Y, but there's the S. Can you make letters in the dirt like that? I think I could. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. How do you feel about how these girls are talking to her? Is that a nice way? Is that the way to give your friends a happy face? Well, look, it didn't give her a happy face. It gave her a sad face. In fact, Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria talking again at nap time? During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, a chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden and with worms and other dirty things. And Mrs. Chudd said, thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria. Now put your head down. I just cannot believe your name, Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. Neither can I, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Look at how sad she looks. Why can't Victoria say nice things, I wonder? Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even looked like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, pish, said her mother. They're just jealous. And envious and begrudging and disconnected and jaundiced, said her father. Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better, maybe a little bit better. After her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. Remember, that's the game. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum, and she sprouted leaves and petals, and Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning, and she loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and good luck charms. Well, that's kind of a good idea to help get through a rough day, to have some special things with you. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school, and she stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 the flowers seemed to say. Well, the next morning at school was a very special morning. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, and she was the music teacher. That's another teacher in the school that comes and teaches music and instruments and singing and dancing. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. And the students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. I think that means that they liked her a lot. They were very impressed with this Mrs. Twinkle. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. They tried their hardest to be very good and very smart. The Mrs. Twinkle led the students in singing scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musicale. And Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen, and Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess, and Joe was chosen as a very important pixie messenger, and Chrysanthemum was chosen to be a daisy. That's another kind of flower, isn't it? I wonder how she's going to feel about not being a fairy queen or a butterfly princess or a pixie messenger. I wonder how she's going to feel about being picked to be a flower. Well, you know how her friends are going to act. You know how the other children at school, they think it's terribly funny that she's named after a flower. So they laughed. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy. Joe, Rita, and Victoria, they chanted. They thought it was wildly funny. And Chrysanthemum, she wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. And Mrs. Twinkle said, "What's so humorous? Why is everyone laughing? What's so funny?" And the answer the children gave was Chrysanthemum. That's what's so funny. Her name is so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, again with the pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria, and she is named after a flower. Mrs. Twinkle said, my name is very long. It is, said Joe. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would, said Rita, still pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower too. You are, said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle, my name is Delphinium. Delphinium is another name for a flower, and it's Mrs. Twinkle's first name. And if my baby is a girl, you can see she looks like she might be having a baby soon. If my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name for her. I think the name Chrysanthemum is absolutely perfect. And Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed and she beamed, and then she bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Oh, look, her happy face is back. Joe and Rita and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly, and then they decided they wanted names like flowers too. And Joe said, call me Marigold. And Rita pointed, I'm Carnation. And Victoria said, my name is Lily of the Valley. Interesting choices. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. Now she knew it. There's something here called an epilogue. It's like the after story. Like, this is the end of the book, the end of the story, but there's a little bit more to tell. The epilogue. Overall, the class musicale was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria made the only mistake. She completely forgot her lines as the dainty fairy queen. Chrysanthemum thought it was wildly funny, and she giggled throughout the entire dance of the flowers. Oh, still not nice to laugh at your friends, is it? It's really not. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and of course she did name her Chrysanthemum. The end. All right, so you and your grown-ups have a lot to talk about in this story. One of the things that I want you to talk about besides what happens in this story, I want you to find out where your name came from. Are you named after somebody, like Victoria was named after her grandmother? Are you named after something or some place that your family likes? Are you, does your name have another meaning that you can tell us all about? I look forward to hearing it. All right, thanks for listening, my friends.